Hello and welcome to Concept Classes. So today we will have an introduction to extraction of crude drugs where we will see what is extraction, how to choose the extraction method, what are the various factors that can affect the extraction process. So let us begin. Now coming to the extraction. What is extraction? Extraction is the process of separating the active principles from the crude drug by using any suitable solvent or a mixture of solvents. So it's the treatment of the plant or animal tissues with solvent so that the medicinally active or the biologically active constituents they get dissolved into the solvent, and most of the inert matter that remains undissolved after extraction, that is known as mark, and the solvent which we use for the extraction is known as menstruum. So when we go for extraction, we put the drug material into a suitable solvent, and the solvent gets imbibed into the cells of the drug sample, and hence the phytoconstituents which are present inside the cells, they get dissolved into the solvent if and only they are soluble into that particular solvent. So the extraction process is controlled by mass transfer, and this process is continued till equilibrium is set up between the solution which is in the cells and the free solution. Now, when we go for extraction, the most important part is the choice of the solvent, right? So before choosing a solvent, we have to keep in mind certain factors. And the first thing is that the characteristics of the secondary metabolites which we are going to extract. So, what are metabolites? Metabolites are the substances which are biosynthesized in a plant, which could either be a primary metabolite or a secondary metabolite. Now, primary metabolites are obtained from basic cycles like TCA cycle, uric acid cycle, which forms carbohydrates, amino acids, nucleic acids, and many more primary metabolites. While the secondary metabolites take these primary metabolites as precursor and they form newer metabolites. And these are, these secondary metabolites are pharmaceutically very important as they have high biological activities. Now, some examples could be alkaloids, cardiglycosides, anthraquinone glycosides, terpenoids, steroids, and many more. Now, these are the various secondary metabolites which we isolate from the plant material. So, before choosing a solvent, the polarity of the phytochemicals is highly important. For example, the steroids, they are lipophilic or lipid-loving substances, and hence, to extract these steroids, we need a non-polar solvent because their solvation is higher in non-polar solvents like petroleum ether. And if the phytoconstituent is a sugar type, so it will need more of a polar solvent for solvation. Okay, so next is the pH. pH of the particular secondary metabolite to be extracted is also under consideration as the concentration of the hydrogen ion interacting with the solvent is very important for the solvation of the secondary metabolite. Next comes the thermal stability. So before choosing a solvent, we have to find what is the thermostability of the secondary metabolite that we are going to isolate. For example, if we take vitamin C of the citrus fruits, mm, so or above 40 degrees centigrade, the vitamin C get easily denatured. So the choice of any solvent which will require to have a high temperature to extract vitamin C will obviously decrease the amount of vitamin C extracted, and it will cause the denaturation of the vitamin C. Now, what will be the solvent characteristics? What are the ideal characteristics of the solvent? So, the first and most important thing is that the solvent should dissolve maximum of the desired phytoconstituents. That means solvent should be able to dissolve the maximum amount of the secondary or the primary metabolites which are intended to get extracted, right? Next, the solvent should be non-inflammable, it should be inert. That means it should not interact with the secondary metabolite to form any newer compound. Now, it should be non-toxic, very clear, because we are extracting and isolating these phytoconstituents for biological purpose. So it is very important that the solvent should not be toxic in nature. For example, methanol is known to be highly toxic. So methanol extracts are many times not preferable for various extraction, and hence certain aqueous extracts are more preferable over this. Then next is the easy removal of the solvent. The solvent which is utilized to extract the phytoconstituents, they should not leave any residual solvent while we go for the drying of the extract. That means the solvent must be removed completely and should not have any residual solvent left on the phytoconstituents. Now, next is the choice of extraction method. So there are lots of extraction methods. Some are traditional methods, and we have some modern methods of extraction also. All these methods of extraction we'll be discussing in the subsequent lectures. So out of all these available extraction methods, when you go for choosing any one extraction methods, so there are some parameters, there are some factors that you have to keep in mind. So first one is the sample size. That means how much raw material you are having. Accordingly, we have to choose the extraction method. Secondly, the quantity of extract required. Actually, the quantity of extract required is always dependent on the purpose of extraction, and the amount of extract required, it depends whether we are extracting this for some biological activity research, or just for some phytochemical analysis, or we need to isolate some particular compound from those extract, or we are extracting this for preparatory purpose. That means when we need a high amount of the given phytoconstituents. So depending on this purpose of extraction, we have to choose the extraction method. Next is the extraction time. In some cases, we need to extract the drug in a short time, and in some cases we need a longer extraction time, longer extraction duration. So depending on this time also, we have to choose the extraction method. Then comes the choice of solvent. Now the solvent also, when you go for some heating, some extraction process where we need to apply heat, so we have to choose a solvent accordingly. And finally, the overall cost of the selected extraction method is also to be considered. So these are the factors. Analyzing all these factors, we have to decide, or we have to choose the extraction method. So far we have discussed what is extraction, how to choose a solvent, and how to choose an extraction method. Now, let's see what are the factors those affect the extraction of these crude drugs. So the first factor is the size of the powdered drug, right? So the smaller the particle size, it will facilitate optimum extraction. Why? Because when we decrease the particle size, it enhances the surface contact between the sample and the extraction solvents, and that will lead to effective extraction, right? Next comes the moisture content. Now, any plant material which has been chosen, either the plant part is dried, or it is a fresh material, or it can be some unorganized part also. So, uh, in any form, there are moistures. So, in the dry material, almost 3 to 5% moisture content is available. And when you go for fresh material, at least 12% of moisture is present there. And in case of unorganized drug, the moisture content is variable. Actually, it depends on the drug. So, what is this moisture content? Moisture content means the presence of water, and along with the solvent, this water will cause the partitioning or the distributing of the solute which is intended for the extraction. and hence the extraction will be limited or lesser efficient. So this consideration of the moisture content is very, very important, and this can greatly affect the efficiency of the extraction that you are conducting. Next is the mixing, the ratio of the solvents. So there are many solvents which cannot easily penetrate into the cell wall, but are capable of diluting or dissolving the solute in the cell material. So if we change the ratio little bit, ratio of the solvent system, now that will allow the penetration as well as the solvation of the solute, and hence this mixing ratio is an important consideration in the extraction procedure. Then comes the temperature of the extraction process. This thing we have already discussed. So here again we have to keep in mind about the thermostability of the phytoconstituents. For an example, in case of cardiac glycosides are generally extracted in a cold condition because they are highly sensitive to temperature. Now, pH of extracting solvent, again, that is the interaction of hydrogen and concentration of solvent in the solute, which can affect the extraction procedure. And lastly, the very, very important point to be considered is the lipophilicity of the substances. That means the substance or the phytoconstituents which you need to extract are lipophilic. Then we have to go for certain solvents which are lipid loving. On the contrary, if the phytoconstituents which are intended to extract, if they are hydrophilic, then we have to go for water as a solvent, and similarly depending on the polarity of the component to be extracted, we have to choose the solvent. So this lipophilicity of the solvent mixture and the sample is the very, very important factor that affects the extraction of the crude drug. So in this lecture we have discussed what is extraction, what are the factors that affects extraction of the crude drugs, and how to choose a solvent and how to choose an extraction process.
In the next video, I will discuss about the various methods of extraction of crude drugs in detail. So please do subscribe the channel, and thank you so much for watching the video.